Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, in the news today, the president of Gambia had some pretty strong words for the LGBT community. We also have Pope Francis making some more moves in Jerusalem there, and also Russia and other nations continuing to make plans for what everybody is calling World War III. But first, we're going to look at a strange weather occurrence centered around Abilene, Texas. Now, looking at the live radar on May 23, 2015, in the early evening, severe thunderstorms across central Texas had been building and making their way straight towards Abilene. Then all of a sudden, as the storm neared the House of Yahweh, and they were having a special 3-day gathering there at that time, the storms just split. They went to the north and south and went right around them.
No explanation, just
split.
Wow. Well, President Barack Obama, when he was Senator Barack Obama, seemed to be telling people that there was not much morality in Christianity in the United States. At a Call to Renewals conference in Washington, D.C., he spoke of a diverse religious nation, but seemed to question what Christianity was founded upon.
Well, President Obama said, whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation. At least not just. We are also a Jewish nation, a Muslim nation, a Buddhist nation, a Hindu nation, and a nation of non-believers. And even if we did have only Christians in our midst, if we expelled every non-Christian from the United States of America, whose Christianity would we teach in the schools? So before we get carried away, let's read our Bibles now. He said, folks haven't been reading their Bibles.
Well, I think that's pretty true. Well, Pat Robertson is raising the eyebrows of many Catholics when he answered the following question on his show. It was, we have friends who do not celebrate Christmas because they say December 25th is really a pagan holiday. While I agree that Jesus may not have been born on December 25th, he certainly was born as described in the Bible. So how do I respond to them, he said.
Well, in answering, Pat Robertson came clean about how Christmas evolved from truly pagan origins, going into quite a bit of detail. He said the winter solstice, or a couple days later, was the shortest day of the year, and the pagans had something called Saturnalia. And it was a time of lawlessness because all the laws were suspended. Now, he went on to explain how there was a lot of immorality taking place there, actually public nakedness, and even mass sexual orgies at that pagan event.
Wow. What about the date December 25th? Well, Mr. Robertson said that came from Rome. He said, and that's where these dates actually were established. And so they get pretty close to the date, but to say that it's the 25th, well, shepherds were out abiding in the field, and it gets a little cold at night during that time period. I mean, where they were out in the middle of winter, were they out in the middle of winter? He said, he's just continuing on here. He says, I don't know. I've been there in the shepherd's field on Christmas Eve. It's very nice, but he said it's cold.
Finally, Mr. Robertson said, so all this business about mistletoe, pagan. Christmas trees, pagan. Giving out gifts, pagan. Every bit of it, pagan. Every single bit of it. We've Christianized it all. So that's good. So we have time, we celebrate for Jesus, and everybody gets all misty-eyed, but the truth is they're all pagan. So we have Christianized all these things, he said. We give gifts in the name of Jesus.
Well, in other things related to the Middle East, the Pope is still active in the land regarded as holy. Well, YPN's Larry McGee has our latest update, And Larry, what actions is the Pope taking now?
Still reeling from the Vatican's recent declaration of support for Palestinian statehood, Israelis received another blow this week after the Pope publicly presented Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas with a medal and christened him an angel of peace. In other activities, the successor of Constantine also canonized 4 nuns from the region, which marked a first in Vatican history. The action was reportedly designed to strengthen Christianity in the region, and local clergy were quickly set to work to propagandize the event, calling the newly canonized nuns Palestinians. One of the biggest points of contention in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the ambition of Palestine to divide Jerusalem and crown its portion the capital of a sovereign Palestinian state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that will never happen. And in speaking with respect to the Vatican's intentions in supporting Palestine, televangelist Pat Robertson, who's become quite the Vatican critic these days, says the papacy's motives are unclear. The televangelist, who was an obvious supporter of Israel, shocked many by saying he doesn't care if one is the Pope or an angel from heaven. You are not going to frustrate the Bible. While on the subject of the scriptures and those who support its perspective, at least in part, the president of the Gambia, Yahya Jammeh, created a stir this week after he referred to men who choose to practice sodomy as vermin and pledged to combat them like malaria-causing diseases. In a spirit of opposition, the president expressed his commitment to Gambia's Islamic beliefs and vowed not to yield to outside LGBT pressure. According to President Jammeh, LGBT can only stand for leprosy, gonorrhea, bacteria, and tuberculosis, all of which, he says, are detrimental to human existence. While the proposition of mass death at the hands of diseases mutated by immoral sexual practices is an alarming and disturbing scenario to conceive in and of itself, what is equally as concerning and acknowledged by many in government as an inevitability is World War III, and reports are now saying it is coming. The recent alarm is being sounded by billionaire philanthropist George Soros, who believes a failure in the Chinese economy could provoke the nation to kamikaze warfare. Other analysts reject that assessment, accepting the high potential for a U.S.-China conflict, but pointing instead to America's increased military presence in the Asia-Pacific, which is hemming China in and setting the stage for warfare, just as authors such as Malachi Martin foretold. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Good time, Jeff. Back to you.
Well, it's definitely apparent that we are on the verge of another world war. Well, just how does mankind affect greenhouse gas levels? In an interview with Greg Dalton, founder of Climate One, it was asked if stopping the rise in population would be one of the biggest levelers in stopping the rise in greenhouse gases. Well, Christiana Fugeres, Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, had this to say. Yes, we have about 9 billion people, or will have about 9 billion people by the year 2050, so less people will exert less pressure on the natural resources, and we should work to change those numbers.
She continued, because we already are exceeding the planetary carrying capacity without considering adding more to the population, which will overextend our capacity. So yes, we should do everything possible.
Yeah, I wonder what their plans are to achieve that population.
Yeah, they don't really tell you, but they're saying we need to reduce this population.
A little bit scary there. Well, a senior Iranian commander said that Israel cannot cause Iran any problem for the Iranian Republic, saying Lebanon's Hezbollah movement is in possession of 80,000 missiles that could target the heart of the cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa. Iran's senior commander said that Iran is a powerful country and that any move against it would generate a crushing response.
Iran's military commander said that the Zionists, referring to Israel, are fully aware of Iran's capabilities and do not dare to attack Iran.
Like they used to say, those sound like some fighting words right there.
That's right.
Well, when 2 Russian fighter jets flew too close to Swedish airspace, the Swedes scrambled their own fighter jets to send a clear message. In fact, 3 of Russia's neighbors, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, are asking NATO to station troops there as a deterrent. NATO jets have been intercepting more Russian fighter jets and surveillance aircraft that have been flying too close to European airspace.
Well, fighter jets from an airbase can scramble and be airborne in just 15 minutes. Now, the Russian jets that they've been intercepting have been trying to stay invisible by turning off their transponders. Now, in 2014, these such interceptions occurred 100 times, a nearly 4-fold increase from the previous year, 2013. Now, the fear is that these interceptions and identifications of the Russian aircraft, if it isn't done, they could cause a crash with a commercial airliner.
Yes, and we've had plenty of air disasters already. Well, General Philip Breedlove is NATO's supreme commander in Europe, and he said this is certainly not the behavior that you would see between 2 partners. For example, Russia's seizure of Crimea and giving military backing to rebel forces who the U.S. accuses of shooting down a Malaysian airliner in July. Many of Russia's neighbors fear Russia and don't want things to go back to what it was like 25 years ago.
Well, General Breedlove was asked if Russia did to a NATO ally what it did to Ukraine, how would NATO respond? The general said NATO is committed to defending its cause and will defend any NATO nation that is attacked by any nation.
If NATO approves the permanent deployment of ground troops to the Baltic states, it will undoubtedly anger Russia. That because Russia already accuses the West of encroaching on Russian interests. Well, these nations are definitely on edge, and it seems they only see war as the answer to exercise control over their enemies. Well, Israel Hawkins of the House of Yahweh teaches the Peaceful Solution, which is a program that shows how to make friends out of enemies, whether between 2 people or 2 billion. Find out how you can fix your problems as well as fixing the problems of this world by contacting the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copies of the Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. Here's what you can do.
You can contact the House of Yahweh today by writing them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, or www.yahwehsbranch.com. You can also email them at info@yahweh.com. And for any calls outside the United States, please call the number on your screen.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, the one bringing forth the golden oil that brings light in the darkened world, Israel Hawkins. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.